So, you want to be a cosplayer? Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. This episode is very special. As you can tell, it is much longer than my other ones, and that's on purpose. Today we're going to be talking about conventions, and specifically conventions for beginners, talking about topics like what to expect, how to prepare, that sort of thing, for people who maybe haven't gone to a convention before, or haven't gone to a convention and cosplayed before. I really enjoyed my talk with Michael from Corp Cosplay. He's a good friend of mine, and I hope that you also love the video as well. So, yes, it's very long, but we talked about some great stuff, and I hope you get some nuggets out of it as well. Enjoy. Corp Cosplay, Michael, how you doing?
Doing pretty well, sir. How are you?
Doing good. I have been looking forward to this for quite a while. As some of viewers, if you guys have been watching episode 0, I've had this series idea in my head for quite a long time. And this topic and this guest has been on that list basically since the inception, and since I've met him. Since then, I've been treated to a phenomenal friendship and a phenomenal cosplay companion, because iron sharpens iron, and every time he posts something, I get excited. And you have your own podcast, so do you want to just quickly tell us who you are, kind of what you do within the cosplay world, kind of how you like to cosplay, as well as talk about your podcast as well, because that's super exciting, and I think people should jump on that.
Thank you, sir. Well, my name is Corp Cosplay. I've been attending conventions for over a decade, since 2009. I've been cosplaying since about 2010, off and on, but really 2019 is when I really kicked it into high gear. Um, I've gone to at least 2 to 3 conventions every single year. Along with attending conventions, I also volunteer at conventions. I've been volunteering now for almost a decade as well. At local conventions, I've worked in several different positions: ticket taking, helping helping fans around the con. But the main place I'm usually working is with the celebrities and the celebrity lines. If you line up to meet a celebrity, you'll have a big line, and then you'll have a table. I'm the one right in between the table, just making sure everything goes well with the guests and you guys. Um, I've been, like I said, I've been cosplaying since 2009, off and on 2019, kicking into high gear. Um, it's definitely changed a lot in the past, X number of years I've been doing it. But 2019, I kicked it into high gear. I made a Luigi costume, and that seemed to get a very big response. I won a couple awards with it. So once I saw that the peers of the cosplay world were telling me that you did good, I knew this was something I wanted to really push and really go full tilt. So since then, it's been cosplay ever since.
Yeah, it's interesting how an award can kind of shift your whole opinion on what was this part-time hobby, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, maybe I'm actually onto something here." I did the same thing at Thunder Bay Comic Con. It was the first one after the pandemic for them, and I popped up, and they just kind of went, "You should definitely join the contest." I was like, "I've never been on a contest before. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do." I showed up, and they were impressed, and I remember watching the group of people that were getting all like the awards,
Mhm.
crowd choice and all that kind of stuff. It was dwindling, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm the only one left in this group, and I was told I was an award winner. I'm like, oh, I have to walk up stage now. But that was a big moment. And again, not that you can't find fulfillment without an award.
Mhm.
That's I'm hoping to get someone to talk about contests and
Mhm.
such onto the stream eventually. But I thought bringing someone on with your knowledge of conventions and what they are, comic cons. If you haven't seen the cosplay slang video episode of So You Want to Be a Cosplayer, I definitely recommend doing that. We talk about cons and some related terms of conventions there, so I definitely recommend. However, I'm going to start off with this because everyone kind of has a different view or take on what a convention is. Myers Court Cosplay, what to you is a comic convention?
A comic convention is basically a place where a gathering of a bunch of people who have very similar interests, but not always the same interests. I realized when I first started going to conventions, my first con was Fan Expo 2019.
Hmm,
And back then, the con was set up very different than most cons are now. When you walked in, it was one floor, and they literally had it sectioned out with different genres. So
really?
you had a comic genre, a comic area, you
Oh
had a
wow.
horror area, you had a sci-fi area, an anime area, and a gaming area. So you knew if you weren't an anime fan, just avoid these three rows. If you're not a horror fan, avoid these three rows. Now everything intermingles. It's very hard to go to a
Interesting.
con and not see anime mixed with comics, mixed with gaming. Um, but yeah, basically you're going to a place where everybody sort of has a similar interests in the wide world of pop culture and comics and movies and all those things. And we celebrate it. We celebrate it by meeting people from the industry, meeting fellow fans, getting friendships, cosplaying, buying things that we've always wanted, and stuff like that.
That's as good of a definition as any, because I would absolutely agree. It's the expression and the appreciation of pop culture in one massive gathering. With and I even from when I started, which was about 2018. I mean, yeah. So I've definitely been to cons before that time, but when I first started going on a serious basis was about 2017, 2018. And since then, I've noticeably seen the amount of cosplayers increase. When I
Mhm.
first went, I was part of the minority of people dressed up.
Mhm.
And even though it was Calgary, at the time it was Calgary Comic Con. Fan Expo hadn't taken over yet, I don't think.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, it's always horrible weather, horrible weather. It's either like scalding hot
Mhm.
and like warblers dripping off of people, or it's slush raining. It's
Oh.
one or the other. It's terrible. But I remember being part of the minority and feeling very awkward in that.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about dressing up for cons in a little bit here. But seeing that appreciation and specifically the cosplay version of that expression increase is very very cool, and I think it's very very welcoming. It's encouraging for someone who wants to cosplay and or has gone to cons before and wants to take that next step into should I cosplay for a con.
Mhm.
um, in your experience, and I know that I've got some different versions as well in my head, so I'm pretty sure you would too. But are there different kinds of comic conventions, and what kinds are there that you have noticed?
Yeah, there definitely is. There's a lot of I would call generic Comic Cons, which sort of have everything involved.
Hmm.
Local to this area, the Southern Ontario area, Fan Expo, Niagara Falls, Toronto, Hamilton, ones like that. They're kind of across the board. There are specific cons though. Anime North in Toronto, I believe Toronto Anime Expo has a con in a month. I think there's also Frightmare in the Falls, which is a horror convention, which is strictly
Yes.
horror.
Yeah.
There's more generic ones, but if you look hard enough, you can definitely find some specific ones. And there's also ones that are generic but do have specialties. For example, if you're a wrestling fan like I am, Hamilton specifically has a section, and they bring a lot of wrestlers in for that because they have their
Mm.
Legends of Wrestling section, which there's always more wrestlers at that convention than almost anyone in the area.
Yeah, and I would even say Southern Ontario has a great selection of Ren Fair, which I
Yeah.
throw into the Comic Con Fan Expo pile. It's not usually because it's usually seen as more of it's super niche compared
Yeah.
to anime. There's so many different kinds of anime and
Mhm.
manga and all that versus Renaissance fairs tend to be very uh you're going to see different kinds of people. There's going to be different activities, but it's almost very generic in the same way that Fan Expo is. If you've been to one, you kind of go. If you go to Calgary Fan Expo, you're going to find similar setups,
Mhm.
um, just different locations of different people. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's fantastic as well when you've got in Southern Ontario in particular, where we both are, such a density
Mhm.
of places you can drive within a day to, like, I want to say a dozen different cons throughout the year, which is exciting, but also sometimes you feel like you're left out. You're like, I have to choose. Do I want to go to London? Do I want to go to Hamilton? Do I want to go to
Yeah.
Niagara? Do I want to go, which is fantastic. I also think one of the great things about niche cons and the amount of cons is that there's different sizes.
Mhm.
Um, ThunderCon, not ThunderCon, that's what they called it. Sorry, ThunderCon in Thunder Bay
Yeah.
is tiny. It
Mhm.
is it is tiny, but it's a fantastic intro to what a convention is. It had its artist alley, it had its vendor booths, it had celebrities, and it had cosplay like contests and then the main stage events. But it was all so small
Mhm.
that you can find those comic cons if you're not sure and you don't want to find parking in Toronto and go to the expo center, and you don't want to have to deal with all that. You can go find a small con that has a parking lot that isn't going to
Mhm.
fill up. Like I went on, sorry, I don't know what the thumbs up is, but I have a computer setting. So if thumbs up pops up, I don't know what that is. But like London Comic Con I went on a Saturday and
Mhm.
the parking lot was half empty.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was a great small con that felt very big. If you talk to the Geeks and Co guys, um, they would say the same thing. London is a small Comic Con that feels massive. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much going on, which is so cool. But with that, you can get people who aren't used to cons or are very shy. You can go to a con that's smaller and start to dip your toes and kind of get used to the atmosphere and go to that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and to go off of that, there
yeah.
if even some of the generic cons, once you start going to some of them, there are some cons that have specific things that other cons might not have that might help you. For example, there used to be a small con here in Hamilton that isn't around anymore. I think it ended just before the pandemic hit, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it was downtown. It was 2 days, and I had started going to other cons besides Fan Expo, and I ended up going to it. And as a cosplayer that wasn't really into it, I wasn't really into cosplaying as much as I am now. I really dug this one because it was very heavily focused on making. I remember
Mm,
going to at least 2, 3 different panels where they didn't just sit there and tell you how they did it. They brought stuff for you to build while you were sitting there. There
really?
was one, I can't remember her name. She's a cosplayer from Toronto. She did makeup effects of like a slice on my arm and actually did it on my arm to show everybody. There was somebody that made big foam swords that everybody could build if they wanted to. So, really looking at these smaller cons, you might look at them and say, "Well, they don't have the big guests, they don't have all these extra things," but you might get more knowledge out of the smaller cons because they'll have the time to sit down and actually talk to you and not have to push you out of a room because somebody has a Q&A.
Yeah, I think the smaller cons as well. And we're kind of getting into the next question I had or the topic that I had. Um, I love small cons because you get celebrities or um, people in the movie industry that would never make it to Toronto because Toronto is trying to get the big ticket names. London Comic Con this last year had both the guys who do Mandalorian suit stuff.
Yeah.
And they're in the suit. I don't know why. Okay, we're celebrating that. It's worth celebrating. Those guys
It
are
is.
phenomenal. The
They're
show wouldn't
great.
happen without them,
They
but
were
they're
great.
not the ones that Toronto would get.
Yeah.
They'd much rather bend over backwards and get the Scream franchise people to come in versus the stunt guys. So I thought that was phenomenal. And so you can find, and I find those guys are much more approachable as well because you can just kind of go up and start talking with them, and they kind of have a "thank you for talking with me" mentality. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like not to be rude, but they do have that like please come and talk to me.
Yeah.
But then you can also strike up fantastic things. I keep bringing up Geeks and Co, but it's a familiar group of people that we know.
Yeah.
But they've made some phenomenal friends of stunt guys. And before because they go to these small cons and they talk to them. So I definitely recommend if you're not waiting or you're not wanting to go to a big one just yet, find a small one nearby, even if it's just for a day or like 2 days or something like that. Just go. Don't have to dress up. I highly recommend it. we're talking about guests and merchants and stuff. In your experience, what do most, if not all, cons have in common? Because they're like you're saying, there are some cons, Fan Expo in particular, that's
Yeah.
very cookie cutter. They know what they're doing. They're good at it, so you're going to see the same things. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So obviously, when you go there, there's probably going to be some form of a celebrity there for most cons, not always. Um, it could be a fan expo where they could have movie stars. It could be a smaller one that has a TV star. It could be a more a retro star from back when
Mm.
we were kids or younger. You'll always find those. You'll find vendors galore. There's always going to be somebody selling something, and that could be toys, that could be comics, that could be food, that could be what some cons call crafters corner, where it's independent artists from the area
Hmm.
trying to
Hmm.
sell off their stuff, um, which are usually some of the coolest finds if you
Seriously.
actually take some time to look through those. There's going to be food vendors there. There's going to be sometimes sponsors. If there's a sponsor at the con, they might have a booth there trying to talk about what they're trying to sell. There's going to be fans. There's going to be tons of stuff to do there. There is going to be wall to wall things to do at every con.
That's the one thing that every con decide, like, despite size,
Mm,
whatever room or rooms they have, packed.
yeah.
They will put as much as they can there. I think that, like, jokingly, the only thing that every con has in common is that there is a Funko Pop wall. I have that in my notes. Just like
One?
there's always, yeah, there's at least one
Yeah.
wall of just Funko Pops that are overpriced. And yeah, no, I thought that'd be kind of funny to talk about, but
No, it's
um,
true. I do. 1 second.
yeah, yeah.
So before the Funko boom happened,
Hmm.
my wife was out at a store the one day and picked up this. This is the first Two-Face from the
Wow.
first DC line of Funkos. And we
Whoa.
got it home and we're like, this is the ugliest thing we've ever seen. Who the hell is going to buy this? And it sat on my shelf for the longest time. And I
Hmm.
think about 2 years later was when the boom started. And we went to a con and there was 3 or 4 people who had booths of Funkos. And then the next year it doubled
Yeah.
and then doubled. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to become a thing. Because I actually started to like it. And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm a lantern fan. I'm going to get every lantern because I'm like, how many is there gonna
How
be?
many? How many?
There's like 4 or 5 Green Lanterns. I'm gonna get as many as they make. No, no, no. Once I was like, oh, now they're gonna do every character as a lantern. No, I'm done. I am done. So I learned then not to go. I'm gonna buy all of one thing. But yeah, there is
Yeah.
always going to be a bunch of people trying to sell Funkos for either dirt cheap because they want to get rid of them or stupid expensive because they're valuable.
Yeah, there's always gonna be those that are like the little sticker that says vaulted, right? And they're
Yep.
like, "Oh, okay." So, unless I know,
Yeah.
to look up, if it's vaulted or not, you could really charge for anything. So out of all of these elements that we've talked about, and we've
Yep.
talked about quite a few, what for you is your favorite, or is that impossible?
Um, Favorite thing to do at a con has definitely changed over the years. I really enjoyed doing panels when I first started. I
Mm,
they so to explain my history, I did just Fan Expo for like the first 6 years.
mhm,
And it wasn't until then that I realized, oh, there's other cons. Let's start doing those. So when I first started going to cons was once a year, and I really enjoyed going to the panels that were the artists because I'm such a comic book fan.
mhm.
And they would have I can't remember what they were called, sketch duels. So they would get 2 artists and they put them in a room. There'd be a bunch of us, and they would ask the audience for a suggestion. They would say, "Give me something to draw." And they would usually be something like draw Spider-Man, and they'd be like, we all draw Spider-Man. Give me something different. And they'd come up with some really cool ideas. There would be, you know, we have a sketch from Yannick Paquette who did Swamp Thing, and it's zombie Wonder Woman. Because he's like, I've never drawn zombies really, except for a little bit in Swamp Thing, and I love Wonder Woman. I'll draw that. And this was before he started doing the Wonder Woman run. And that was always really fun, just seeing the suggestions and seeing what the artists come up with. I will always remember there was one day we stood there and the suggestions were so boring. Like it was like Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the two artists are like, guys, we draw this stuff every day. Give me something else.
Yeah.
And the one kid in the back goes, Batman fighting a hot dog. And the moderator goes, we're not doing that. And the guy goes, no, we're doing that. And the sketches were really cool. It was like a big, huge 12-foot hot dog beating up Batman and stuff like that. So those were always the most fun to go to. Now that I cosplay so much, I don't have time to go to those things. Now I really love meeting other cosplayers. I love going, just walking around and seeing the different cosplays. Because like you said earlier, they've evolved so much.
They have.
Even in the past few years. I have photos from 2009 when I first went to Expo, and they're all cosplayers, coincidentally. But there's guys walking around with a aluminum tape Silver Surfer surfboard.
Yes.
And I'm like, that was like, whoa, back then. Now these guys are 3D printing chrome Silver Surfer boards if they want them. So going around and seeing the technique, seeing what people come up with, because I with my cosplay, I wouldn't say odd characters, but I'm not the guy to do Spider-Man. I'm not the guy to do Wolverine. I would do Luigi. I've done Ghost Rider. I've done we can't really see it, but I've done Vic Rattlehead, the Megadeth character from their albums. Just because those are characters I like, but they're also not seen that much. So if you do a costume of a character that I like that I've never seen, like if I saw Biker Mice from Mars or something, I would stop you and be like, okay, tell me from head to toe how you built this thing, because I want to learn.
Yeah.
So that's my thing, is I love now walking around and seeing all these cool cosplayers and just going, this is made from this? Okay, sit down and give me a TED talk of how to do that.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool. I was talking to a friend of mine who wants to do these like obscure manga cosplays, and she was talking about she was worried or wanted to know about the community and like, how do I start? And I just went, I'll be completely honest with you. If you just start posting stuff on Instagram, or if you go to a con with some obscure person, those fans will find you because they're looking for you without knowing it. But they're going to be scanning the room going, is this a Hollow Knight? Like, right, just for example, which is phenomenal. It's so cool to see. Like, I love it when I'm walking past someone. And I usually wear a helmet, so I get to be like really anonymous, and I can just people watch,
which
is great. It's 100% a perk. And just going, I have no idea who you're dressed up as, but wow, just wow! Like, I'm so impressed and everything. But so with that, with your favorite, so I would say I'll give mine. I think it's definitely the cosplay. Just people watching cosplayers and just watching it. We're talking about cosplay techniques that have advanced. The introduction, the advancement of like the Zentai suit craze. Like, how many, like, Spider-Man was such a hard cosplay to do before that, and now anyone, and I'm not downplaying Spider-Man cosplayers, but anyone with $125 can get a very good Spider-Man costume, which is fantastic because it's made it so accessible and affordable. So for me, it's that. It's I remember this last year in Fan Expo, I walked in the Green Goblin suit, and I had just gotten past security and checked the badges and everything, and I was going down the escalators to go to the Geeks & Co booth, and I just remember walking to the escalator, starting to go down, and then just looking down and just seeing the crowd, and it was so cool to just kind of like, we're all in this together. You know, we're all here doing the same thing. It's so cool. So that's my favorite, is the people watching behind foam masks, of course. I realized I recently did a few cosplays where I don't have a helmet. And the first photo shoot, I was looking at my face like, I look so dumb because I don't know what to do with my face. Because normally I've got a mask. It doesn't matter what I'm doing with my face, right? So yeah, I thought that was really funny. But what would you say, talking about the elements that are common among conventions
Mm.
and what your favorite is, what would you say someone brand new to conventions should be the most excited for?
I I'm gonna go personal on this one.
Hmm.
And I when back in 2009, there all right, I don't want to get really long-winded on this, so I'm gonna try and cut it down. Um when I was growing up, I was the comic fan. I
Mm,
was the comic fan, I was the wrestling fan, I
mhm,
was the Kiss fan. So I had three things under my belt that for a time were popular,
mm,
but after a while were not popular. But I stayed as a fan of all three and had no problem saying that I was.
mhm,
And then when one day out of the blue, my buddy Tom messaged me and he said, "Do you want to go to this thing called Fan Expo?" And I said, "Sure." "What's Fan Expo?" He said, "It's a 3 day con." This was when it was 3 days. "It's 3 day con in Toronto. We're all gonna go. We're gonna get a hotel. We're gonna stay." I said, "Okay, what's there?" He goes, "We're gonna meet Bruce Campbell." I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna meet Bruce Campbell." And he didn't tell me much else. And we got there. It was great. We walked into the con, and I remember walking through the doors and seeing everything,
Mm,
everything from my childhood, everything from my teenhood, because I was about 20 when 18, 20 when it happened, everything that I loved currently,
mhm,
all under one roof, and so many other people that I had never met,
mm,
all enjoying the same thing. And I literally said out loud to everybody, I went, "This is home."
mm.
And
Yep.
I say it every single time since then when I walk into Fan Expo,
Mhm,
because that's what it feels like. If you ever get that feeling of, I don't belong,
mm.
go to Comic Con.
Yep.
You
Yep.
will instantly, whether someone comes up to you and says it or not, you will feel a part of a community.
Yep.
And like I said, you don't it's not like, oh, well, we all have to like comic books. We all have to no, 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 no. Just the understanding of you like something in this building. I do too.
Yeah.
That's great. I've got a ton of friends that volunteer at conventions like I do. I don't think any of us have us if we went across and went, I like this, I like this, I like none of us match at all.
Mm.
We have friends that are huge book readers, including my wife.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not a book reader, but I get it because I'm a
Mhm,
comic
mhm,
reader. I know people who are like, I can't watch the MCU, but they go, I love the MCU. So even if you don't agree with every fandom, you
mhm.
will feel a part of a community as soon as you step through those doors because it is one of the most welcoming places I've ever been to.
I
And
agree. Yeah, I agree.
there are toxic people.
Sure.
Every single community has them,
Yes.
but it is dwarfed to the point where you'll barely, if even, notice.
Mhm. I agree. I think what you said is phenomenal, which is I get it. It is a convention where everyone goes, I get it. I get why you're here, and
Yep.
everyone's doing it.
Yep.
Everyone's doing, which is phenomenal. Yeah, I remember feeling the same thing. I got bullied because I big drawer. Um, and when you're drawing guys in spandex suits like
Mm.
Spider-Man, it looks a lot like you're drawing naked guys all the time. And
Yep.
so I got made fun of because of that. And then I remember going, my dad took me and my brother to a con, and it was so cool. It
Yeah.
was so cool. It was like, you're telling me that these guys are here and everyone's loving Spider-Man, like guys that draw Spider-Man. And, we went to Max Brooks panel, World War Z, and
Mhm.
he was making fun of it was it was so cool to get that interaction with authors and the back and forth. And yeah, no, absolutely, I totally agree with you 100%. Um, and that's at any con.
Yeah.
I've been to small, I've been to large. It's anywhere. You know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
what's really cool is even the like you were saying, the volunteers also love being there for the
Yeah.
most part. Like I've gotten compliments before I even get into the con.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Just like standing in the line outside, they're like, "Love it, dude," or you know what I mean? Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool. You should go see this guy." It's so cool. From the minute you get into the parking lot, you've got this really cool, warm feeling. At least in my experience, and I would
Yeah.
say for most people's experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered what is going to happen at a con. We've
Mhm.
covered why you should go to a con,
Mhm.
why we think you should go to a con.
Yep.
What would you say as a volunteer? I'd like you to put the volunteer hat on.
Okay.
What can someone do to prepare for their first con? It doesn't have to be cosplay related. Just
Yeah.
I'm going to Fan Expo for the very first time. What should you do to prepare?
So the first thing I would say is, are we talking about you've landed at the con or you're preparing to go? Because that's two
I
different things.
I would say it is the week of the con.
Okay. Perfect.
You're going on Friday, and
Perfect.
it's Monday.
No problem. Okay. So what I would suggest is get a floor plan,
Yep.
get directions to get to the con,
Mhm.
find parking early, like find out where you're going to park,
Yep.
and find a schedule. So this will help you driving to the con or getting to the con in whatever way you're going to get there. So you don't A, get lost, B, realize that this is way more traffic than I was going to run into.
Yep. Yep.
Um, realize that parking in the area can be a pain in the butt. So try to have 2 to 3 different parking areas just in case.
Yep.
Um,
That's a good one.
when you get to a convention, floor plan is, if you've never been to the con, you've never been to the building, get a floor plan. Figure out where you want to go. That will include the schedule. Where you want to go, what time everything is, and where the things you need. Where are washrooms? Where is food? Where is, if they have a rest area or a place where you can just get away for a bit. Um,
I've seen
basically,
that pop up more often in cons
mhm,
nowadays, just like a silent room or
yeah.
something. You know what I mean? Just a quiet room, and I definitely think that's a good one to look for as well.
Yeah, you can, even if they don't post a place like that, you can kind of see based off a floor plan where everything is.
Hmm.
You can go, okay, the crowd is going to be in this area. This is probably the best place to go if I need to get away for things.
Hmm.
Um, and you'll also realize that once you get there. Definitely once you get there and do a walkthrough, you'll notice some gaps in certain areas. But yeah, roadways, traffic, whatever you need to get there, parking, um, floor plan, and schedule are the 4 things you should have at least a good idea before you get to the convention, because otherwise you're going in blind and that is never fun. I'm the guy who will prep weeks in advance. I will leave hours in advance
Yeah.
just because it's just a pain in the butt for me if I get there and it's like, okay, you got 10 minutes to get into the con because the Q&A you want to go to is, in 15 minutes. And then, okay, we have to get there. We have to get out. We have to get to the convention. We have to get our tickets. If we don't have them already, we have to get
Yes.
so yeah, those 4 things are the big things. In all 4.5, if you can afford, or if there's a way to get your tickets beforehand,
I was gonna bring
Fan
that up. Yeah.
Fan Expo does a delivery system.
Hmm.
It's worth the money.
I agree. I agree.
It's worth the money not waiting in that line.
Hmm. No, I absolutely agree. I think the parking in particular
Mm,
is a big one, especially when you come to bigger cities where
yeah.
it's a convention center, for example.
Mhm,
If there's no parking nearby, like I always go when it comes to convention centers that are like the city's convention center,
mhm.
assume the parking there is full. Just assume
Yeah,
that and go from there.
yeah,
Um, and then also another thing is if you're prepared to walk a little bit, that's fine if it's cheaper
yeah,
parking. Like
yeah.
if that's all right, or you find the bus, you find the subway or whatever. Um, yeah, I think that's really, really good. Most cons nowadays will have a website,
Mhm,
which usually you can find via their social medias. Usually where they have floor plans and schedules.
mhm.
But I also know that Fan Expo in particular had like a brochure that you could pick up at
Yep,
their info desk that has everything. So if you didn't get it digitally, you could probably find something physically. And again, this is just the cons that we're talking about. Every
Yeah.
con's a little bit different. Smaller cons may not have all of that, but I've seen it more and more often that at least an online floor plan is available on the website,
Yeah.
which is really helpful.
And also
Um,
the volunteers are there too. So
yes, of course.
if anything does go wrong and
Hmm.
you are lost or something, find someone who has a volunteer shirt on. They should be
Hmm.
able to help you. I know specifically for Hamilton and Niagara, which are the two big ones that I volunteer at. We have an amazing gentleman named Brad who sort of runs the volunteers for my area, and he will actually in his spare time print what we call the Brad Bible, which has every celebrity,
Hmm.
what times they're going to be doing Q&As, what times they're planning to, I don't shouldn't say be there, but like they're supposed to be here between X and X.
Yeah,
They're here Monday to Friday, they're here Tuesday, they're blah blah blah. And that he gives us every detail that we can have this little booklet with us. So if anybody comes up and needs to ask us a question about the celebrity area, we have it at our fingertips.
that's great.
So most volunteers who have been there have a general idea of where things are. So if anything ever does go wrong or you do need to ask a question, that's why we're here.
Perfect. Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're never had a bad experience with a volunteer. Honestly, like I've heard of people talking about bad experiences, and I go, well, yeah, you were trying to bring an airsoft gun into a convention, dude. Like
Don't get me
it's always the
started.
craziest things that like,
Don't get me started on
yeah,
them. Oh man.
yeah. So, that's another thing. Don't bring airsoft gear out, like unless it's gear, like as in clothing. That's usually fine. Don't bring magazines
Yeah.
or anything in. Instead, buy my foam templates.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. If you're thinking of doing something like that, my suggestion is definitely look in the mirror.
Mm,
Look in a mirror when you're in full costume and say, can I successfully walk around a mall
mhm.
without getting any attention from security?
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
And
That's a
if
good
you
way of looking at it.
can, you're probably safe.
Yep.
If you can't, maybe we should think about something.
Yeah.
There was definitely an incident 2 years ago, last year at Niagara Falls Comic Con. I was showing up for my first day, and there was a guy dressed in Resident Evil um, Umbrella Corps armor,
Yep. Yep.
like head to toe black, and had pouches everywhere, and security's going through them, and there's pepper spray and cuffs and stuff. And the guy's looking at him like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, this is
Yeah.
what the character would have." He goes, "This isn't real. Like, go take that stuff off. Like, you can't
Yeah.
come into a place like that."
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've had paper towel tubes with ping pong balls at the end that look
mhm,
like M30, like M320 grenades.
yeah.
Them questioned.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like even when it's obvious,
Yeah.
they still question, and it's for everyone's safety. It's annoying. I always tell people it doesn't matter if Punisher looks dumb with Nerf magazines. Bring a Nerf magazine if you
You'll
really
make
need to bring
everybody
something.
happier.
Yeah, exactly. There's also alternatives. Again, I this is my show. I get to promote it. I do offer pistol and M4 magazine foam templates that I've had no problems with. I've talked to people who volunteer for cons and they go, no, as long as like security may pick them up and look at them and
Yeah.
whatever, then it should be fine. But always look at alternatives. The military cosplays are in particular Resident Evil ones I find get in the most trouble.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like Punisher cosplays as well. That's another one. Basically, if you have a weapon, not
Yeah.
a like I was gonna say prop, but some props look really ridiculous and it's very obvious it's not
Mhm.
real. But if you're anywhere close to a military esque prop, double, triple, quadruple question yourself
Yep.
before bringing it in. Or I know that a lot of you might be able to send some emails or messages to the social media team and just go, "This is what I'm looking at. What do you think?"
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to do while prepping. I also want to bring up food, water, hygiene.
Yeah.
Bring
Mhm.
water because it is dehydrating walking around
Oh,
everything, especially if you're in cosplay.
oh, yeah.
Uh, food the food I find that the food at cons are great. It
Mhm.
can be very expensive because most conventions are held downtown somewhere. The restaurants around tend to be a bit more expensive, or you're going to find like McDonald's or Subway or something like that.
Mhm.
But bringing your own food is always the cheapest option. Whether or not that's just a bunch of protein bars, which is I'm when I go, I'm usually on adrenaline for so much of it that all I really want to eat is protein bars because I can't think of eating a whole burger or a sandwich or something
No.
like that. So, and hygiene. It's the one time where I think Jeff was saying it's the one time he'll accept exorbitant body spray. Like
Yeah.
it's much better to smell Axe than it is body odor. So just think about that. Even if you're not cosplaying, just make sure you've got some deodorant on, or you bring a deodorant stick. I
And
think that's
that's and
definitely
bring it with you.
yes,
That's
and bring it
what
with
you
you.
just said.
Yeah,
Bring it with you. It's great to apply that when you're at the hotel or in your car or getting ready to leave.
yeah,
You're gonna need it again.
yes, yeah, 100%.
Just get the travel. You don't have to get the travel size and just
Yeah.
bring it with you, whether it's in a purse, whether it's in your pocket, whether it's in the jacket, bring it because
hmm
I'm telling you, you're gonna need it.
On top of that, I do want to bring up something that I've been trying to do. Sometimes you are not like you or I, where our spouses and partners are fantastic, and
Mhm.
if we want them to help, they will
Yeah.
because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
If you're going to be alone
Mhm.
and you still want to bring your phone, your wallet, and your keys, think about your cosplay and think about where you can put it. Batman is such a utilitarian character that putting on like a bigger bag on your back that the cape hides where you have all that stuff in it, it's definitely worth doing. There's like putting it in a locker is one thing, but then it's over there and you're always worrying about if someone's going to break in. So just consider kind of how you're going to carry your stuff as well. So we talked about what to do to prepare. Let's say you've done all that preparing. You've gotten your badge. You've just gotten through security. You're in the con.
Mhm.
In your opinion, what's the first thing people should do?
Do a general walk.
Mm,
If you've never been to the convention before, just do a general walk around. Don't start buying stuff. Don't start, rushing to Q&As and stuff. Just do a general walk of the convention. If you're going to if you're doing something like Fan Expo where it's two buildings, definitely take a walk around, get a general idea of where the things you want to do, buy, see, meet, whatever,
mhm.
where those general things are. This is where the schedule come into play because you
Yeah.
might think about, okay, I'm on this building and my Q&A that I want to go to is on this building. Well, that walk only takes about 5 minutes. Let's add 20, 30,000 people walking this way and this way past
Yes.
you. That adds time. Stopping to look at things takes time. So really getting a general idea of this section of the con, I probably won't have anything to do with, so we don't have to think about that. Just getting a general idea of where everything is makes your life a lot easier because then you know where you're going, you know where you don't need to go. It'll save you a lot of time backtracking.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when I get the chance to, and so far I've been very, very lucky that I've gotten to be able to do this, going 2 days, because I always
Yeah.
cosplay a day, at least
Mhm.
one. Being able to go the day before you go in kind of what I call civilian clothes, just regular clothes, where you can figure out okay where I want to buy things for the next day, or okay, no, I need to buy this now, but you're not in Spider-Man suit where you have to unzip and get your hand out of the gloves, and okay, I have to unzip my backpack, and oh, my cape's tagged, and doing that a day ahead so for me I've got contact lenses but they're not fantastic, so being able to know generally where you are, even though for me I can't see very well, allows you to be a bit more comfortable. And yeah, no, that's fantastic. I thought I my brain kind of went to like go to the spot that you want to, or go start buying things or whatever, but doing just a general walk is a great idea, even if
Yeah,
it's a small con, just doing a loop you know
yeah, kind of agreeing with you with the multiple day. My Thursday, if I always use Fan Expo as the big one because that's the
Yeah.
4 day one. My Thursday, I'm in street clothes.
Yeah.
I will get there. I will drop my stuff off at the hotel. I'll go to the con, and that is my street clothes day. That is my buying day as well.
Yes.
I will buy 95% of my stuff that day because I don't want to be walking around as Green Lantern with the Fan Expo bag. It just kind of throws the costume off a little bit in my
A little
mind.
bit. Yeah,
I know
yeah.
no one else cares. I do. So that is definitely same. My first day is all right. What what comic books am I looking for? Is there anything exclusive to the convention? Fan Expo has a bunch of different exclusives that they have. So definitely getting that stuff first, getting
Mhm.
it out of the way because, like you said, things could sell out. You never
That's a
know.
big one. Yeah.
So it really depends. So that is what I've learned over the years.
Mhm.
I know I hate walking around with a bag and a costume, so get my shopping and stuff done the first day.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend it, or just walking around. Again, to
Yeah,
being able to be familiar, especially if you're going to be in a cosplay where you're already kind of uncomfortable, and if it's your first time cosplaying,
yeah,
um, you're already going to be like hyper aware on adrenaline. You're going to be kind of uncomfortable. This is your first time out in public, most likely, in your costume. You're kind of self conscious about it, which you shouldn't be because
no,
everyone's doing it and everyone's loving it. Just if
yeah,
you're dressed up, everyone's loving it. Um, but being able to go, I know where I am. I know how to get out. I know where the exits are. I know where the bathroom is. Blah blah blah. Um, okay, so now we've through these very general kind of topics, and they're fantastic. I do want to do a little bit more of a deep dive on
yeah,
some of the things, specific things that people can find at cons. So, for example, most cons that I've
mhm,
found have a main stage, and they usually
yes,
have main stage events. Usually, actually, I'll let you explain that. When
mm,
when someone goes on the brochure and the schedule, and they
mhm,
see main stage event or main room event or whatever,
mhm.
what are they kind of expecting, or what should they expect from those kinds of things?
Those are definitely going to be your big celebrity Q&As. They're definitely going to be big panels. Those are where your main attractions of the con are going to be for the general public. If you're not into the celebrities and all that stuff, it might not be for you. But that's usually where the showcasing of the big stars and celebrities will usually be. Um,
And by
every
and by
Nope.
panel, I just want to, sorry to interrupt, but if you guys have looked on YouTube and you see the San Diego Comic Con MCU trailer, and there's like
Yes.
the big long table with everyone lined
Yeah.
up, that when you say panel, that's usually what it is. It may not be 15 people, it may not
Yeah.
be super celebrities, but they'll have these rooms with a big table, and it's kind of this cool concert feel to it. So when it comes to panels, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and those will usually range from, like you said, it could be a 15 long table, depending on which con. It could be just a one on one talk.
Hmm.
It could be a discussion about a project, could be tons of different things. It definitely depends, obviously, on the convention. Fan Expo specifically has a big, giant room that fits X number of people. That also is the same room, coincidentally, that they do the cosplay masquerade or the Masters of Cosplay, as they call it now at Fan Expo.
Right.
So there might be a cosplay competition there as well. Um, I will admit I've never seen this before at a con, but you brought up London Comic Con. London Comic Con has that main stage pretty much in the middle of the floor
Yeah.
where the vendors are, which I think to some degree could be a problem depending on how you do it because you've got a bunch of people talking with amplifiers and speakers everywhere, so it could drown out some of the conversations that are happening around there. But London did a great job on it that
They
it
really did.
didn't interfere with anything. Like, in fact,
No.
I didn't even realize the main stage was there
Yeah.
until I walked past it. So usually it'll be in a separate room, but London could be in the middle of the floor.
I've actually found that there's a lot of conventions, especially the smaller ones,
Yeah.
that actually have that main stage. ThunderCon had the same thing, and they did a lot of music stuff. There was a lot of music going on, which was really cool
That's good.
because they didn't have they didn't have the Geeks and Co guys bumping their own music and DJ Jeff. They didn't have that. So, but yeah, that's something that I find in small cons is that that main stage is usually out in the open.
Mm,
And it's usually kind of they'll most of the celebrities will usually make their way on there for a little bit for a
yeah.
Q&A or talking about what they're working on. I definitely recommend it, especially if it's in Like the ones that are closed off, I find usually have limited seating, and so sometimes you can't make it in because you've
Yeah.
got people that want to rush in and go, which is great. It's fantastic, but sometimes you can you can miss out on them. But if they're open, I definitely recommend sitting and just listening because you get a feel for what the con is doing. You
Mhm.
get a feel for kind of their spokesperson, which is really really cool. And then it's also a chance just to interact in a non-interacting way
Mhm.
with some of the celebrities. But it's just a really cool kind of element, I think, to cons. Um, so merchants as well is the next thing I wanted to talk about. And I have here, is there such thing as too many Funko Pops? This is the only controversial question I will ever ask is are there too many Funko Pops?
Ask Funko.
Ask Funko. That's a great
Depends
answer.
on what their it depends on what their stock is doing right now. Sometimes,
Allegedly, no.
yeah. Is there too many Funko Pops? Depends on the audience. Um,
I think there should be two booths. There should be a limit of two booths. Have them at opposite ends of the room. Again,
yeah,
okay, so apparently peace the peace sign is a birthday
peace means
symbol.
balloons.
That's what I'm
There you go.
finding. Yeah. Um
Yeah, I don't know. I have a few Funkos. I wouldn't say I have a ton.
mhm.
I have a few for different things. I'm not a collector at all. Actually, I just picked up the Jay and Silent Bob from Clerks 3 a couple weeks ago. Um, but yeah, if they sell,
Yeah.
then great.
Mhm.
There's always people at the booths, so I can't really say they shouldn't be there because if people
No.
want to buy them, then people want to buy them. Um,
What other kind of merchants do you usually find at a convention? Because there's obviously a
yeah.
bunch of them, but in your experience, what are the ones that kind of stand out to you?
So you've definitely got, like I said earlier, the artist alley,
Mhm.
crafters corner areas of the cons. Those
Which
can
I
range.
recommend both of those. Like
Oh,
those are
so
so
much.
cool. So
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 much.
cool.
And at certain cons, there is a difference. Anime North specifically, there is a crafter side, which is more physical, keychains and stuff like that, and an
Yeah.
artist who does print section. So
Good
definitely make
point.
sure
That's a
that
good point. Yeah.
that there can be two. Um, but yeah, an artist alley where you can pick up local artist prints, little keychains and stuff like that. There's usually somebody selling comic books, graphic novels, which I usually do amazing on. Um, Toys, retro toys, current toys.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I saw a lot more vending machines this year at Fan Expo than I had ever seen before. The anime world of vending machines is definitely coming to Fan Expo. I was not expecting that when I walked through the South building. What else? There's definitely going to be people selling food, and
Yeah.
not just the food vendors. There's people usually selling. I know what's the monkey popcorn.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I remember before they took off, they were at Expo and they were giving bags away. They were just giving them away, and everybody in the con was eating popcorn. Um, but yeah, there's gonna be people selling that. There's people gonna be selling swords. Like that one, I'll never understand how people can get away with selling. I know they're not razor sharp, but it's still a metal sword. Um, but yeah, pretty much anything you can think of, you could probably find it at a convention.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's something for everyone. I kind of pitch it as like imagine your dream flea market.
Yeah,
That's kind of what it is.
yeah,
And the food thing's fantastic as well because I've been seeing like London had the hot sauce guys,
yeah.
right? Or was it jerky and hot sauce?
Jerky and hot sauce. Yeah,
It was jerky and hot sauce. That's fantastic. I
yeah,
love that because it's all, and most of the time it's snacking food, which is
yeah.
even better. But I definitely recommend because you can absolutely get those small local brand people that will buy a booth and you get the hot sauce or you get the salsa or like I've seen a variety of them. They're fantastic. And again, absolutely worth talking with them and asking about them,
Oh yeah.
asking them things about it. Um, and yeah, so uh merchants are obviously a large part of it, and
Mhm.
I it's a good point of view separating artist alley from um the kind of crafty side of
Yeah.
things, because there's definitely I do want to bring this up just because it is a big deal for me. If you're worried about AI art being found in Artist Alley, Fan Expo this last year actually came out with a policy, and they actually kicked one or two people out
Yeah.
after fees were paid and everything because they found out the art was AI. You're buying art that someone has made. It might be
Yeah.
digital painted art,
Mhm.
or it might be like traditional art, but everything there is handmade, or at least copies, like yeah, prints of handmade stuff.
Yeah.
So I know for me it's a big deal, so I wanted to bring that up. Celebrity guests, and now this is your kind of area of
Mhm.
expertise.
Yes.
Is it worth the price of admission to just go see celebrities?
If you're really big fan of the celebrity, yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you have to be a big fan of a celebrity too. Because if you've never been to a convention, the admission to the convention does not mean you get to meet the celebrity and you get an autograph. That's
Yes.
extra. That is an extra fee on top of it. Getting an autograph is an extra fee. Getting a photo with the celebrity is an extra fee.
Yeah.
There are two different types of photos. There's a photo at the table where you kind of just do the selfie pose.
The lean over. Yep.
Yep. And then there's the professional photographers that are there that are usually with the convention that you can get a professional photo with the celebrity. All of that is an extra charge.
Excuse me.
So it really depends on the celebrity.
Hmm.
Because I've gone so many times,
Hmm.
the celebrity part of it doesn't really do it for me as a fan. Like
Hmm.
because I've worked with celebrities at the cons, they're normal people now, so the mystique is gone. Like they're just someone who does a really cool job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're a hardcore Hayden Christensen fan
Oh
and
yeah.
he's going to Expo,
Saw a few of those last year.
well, but that's the thing. Like there's no fandom that I have that I'm
Mhm.
willing to spend that price for it. But
Yeah.
I get it. If you grow up and he's your Darth Vader
Mhm.
or he's your Anakin and you want to get your lightsaber signed, who am I to tell you no?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Look into the prices. Yeah. Admission gets you through the front door.
Yeah.
Then there's the photography fee. Then there's the autograph fee. So all of that can really pile up. And then,
And
so
to
just keep that in mind. When you're
to
going in.
and to add to that, it is now becoming more normal that the item you sign has a different price.
Really? Okay, that's good to know.
Hayden being a big one. Um, an 8x10 photo on the table is one price. Getting a trading card signed is a different price. Getting a action figure or a pop signed is a different price.
Oh,
Getting a lightsaber or a helmet signed is a different price.
okay.
And it even can get to the point where some celebrities will say, and this isn't a celebrity, I don't know if this is a celebrity choice, this is an agency choice, this is, if you're Hayden, maybe if it's Disney, um, them writing their name is one price. Them adding to your name is a price.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Adding "May the Force be with you" is a price. So
Mm.
be prepared these days that certain things may cost a little more.
And
Um,
again, worth looking up either on the website or talking to someone at the con,
yeah,
who has, usually they'll put you in contact with someone sort of like you or the person who's ahead of that, the head of that department, and
yeah,
they should be able to help you with some things.
yeah.
But that's really good to know. I did not know that.
And going back, and thank you for bringing up the website. If you're in this area or you're close to the Canada US border and you're meeting a celebrity at a Canada con, say for example, you're meeting somebody at Niagara Falls Comic Con. There has been times in the past where the agency or the celebrity has told the con a price and that's in US dollars.
Ah, okay.
And they list that on the website, not realizing that that's US. So when you get there and you go, well, your autograph on the site says $40, that was US price. Now it's
Okay.
50, 60. So
Right.
I always say if you're going to get an autograph and you're in Canada and there's US people coming up from Canada, bring extra just in case there is that mix up.
Yep.
They do everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen. It happens all the time though. So
No, it's very good. Thank you for
prepare
bringing
for
that up
that.
because I had no like it makes sense in my head that a pop would
It's
be different than a Vader helmet, for example.
it never
But
used to be, but because things are becoming so collected and so high priority, like trading cards
mm,
are stupid pricey now because because the Pokemon craze has come back, the sports card craze has come back. Like I remember seeing who was it? The Undertaker or no, Ric Flair was doing autographs at a convention in the States and everything was a certain price, but they said specifically like his 1991 WCW card was he'd only signed if it's $500
okay, so like sometimes it can be that specific.
because of the rarity of this certain card, and he
Ah,
knows if somebody brings that in and he puts
yeah.
his signature on it, it's now a $10,000 card. So
I mean, hey, makes sense. I get it.
exactly.
Okay, so before we get to the big question,
Yep.
which is it's gonna be very kind of loosey goosey, cosplay guests, which are becoming more and
Yes.
more of a thing, even at smaller cons.
Mhm.
Um, Cosplay guests I have here, I've written my notes. Cosplay guests too scary to approach? Question mark.
Mhm. They
I
can
disagree.
look it.
They can look it. Yeah, absolutely. Some of that makeup is intense, man.
Yeah.
But I would disagree, and I think you agree
100%.
with me. Um,
Yeah.
because they're just like anybody else. They love talking with people, and I definitely recommend it, especially if you're getting into cosplay. Just asking them, who like. I think a great question that I've asked is like, who are your top 5 follows on
Yeah.
Instagram? If you're on Instagram, or if you're interested in that kind of side of the hobby, because it's all inspiration. A lot of people nowadays post tips and tricks
Yeah.
on things, so it's definitely something to ask. I just wanted to bring that up because they are becoming more a regular attachment to Comic Cons and everything. So
Oh yeah. Like think about it this way. Think if you're a cake decorator
mhm.
and you go to and you're a great cake decorator and they invite you to cake con and you're one of the guests there, do you not want to sit there and talk about how you designed your last cake?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's why they're there. Like
Hmm.
there's no reason for them to be a guest and not want to talk.
Hmm. I
Like
agree.
it completely defeats the point. It,
Yeah.
it makes them look worse for not wanting to talk. So,
Yes.
and any of us, if you see, and even if you're not a guest, if you see a cosplayer out there in some, 10-foot Warhammer costume,
Yeah.
tap him or his handler because I don't know if you
Or
get through the phone.
wave. Get
Yeah,
some pylons, and
yeah. Hit the airplane lights.
Yeah.
Ask him questions
Yeah.
because he's more than happy to talk. She is and also I get it. You see the most beautiful black cat cosplayer out there. She will want to talk to you about that black cat cosplay.
I agree.
Don't be intimidated by that. Don't
No.
be intimidated by who or what they're wearing. They all want to talk about it.
I will say, and like we're both well within this sphere, and I don't mind too much. But
Mm.
I wouldn't say tap on some shoulders because some cosplays are delicate, or whatever. I would
I'm
say that
talking from
getting in the
behind it.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah,
clarify
yeah,
because a lot of cosplays can be very delicate,
yeah,
or they just don't want to be touched, and that's totally fine. Absolutely, ask questions, talk to them, be respectful. If they ask you, just kind of back up a little bit so they can actually see you, or
yeah.
rotate.
Mhm.
Sometimes rotating is a little
Yeah,
a little difficult. Yeah, absolutely. If it doesn't have to be a guest, most cosplayers I've ever talked to are usually like bubbling to talk
yeah,
to someone about their cosplay. Like, I want to tell you about things.
yeah.
Um, so that leads me into the kind of bigger, broader question that someone who's watching this might want to know: should you cosplay at a con? And specifically, if it's your first time, I'm going to add that caveat. If it's your first time going to a cosplay con, sorry, a
Yeah.
convention, is cosplaying a good idea?
Your first con, you've never been to a con before.
No.
No, I would say no.
Mhm.
Get a feel for the con first.
Yeah.
Even if it's only an hour, get a feel for the con first
Mhm.
because as you mentioned earlier, there is no one out there that I can think of that has built a cosplay and went, "This is as comfortable as normal clothes."
Yeah.
It doesn't exist unless you're being a sim and you've just got the thing on your head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're always going to have a little bit of being uncomfortable. So get a feel for the con. And as I said earlier, get an idea of where you can get away for a few minutes because the
Mhm.
last thing you want to do is spend days, weeks, months, years on this cosplay. And you get in there and you realize I'm overheating. I
Mhm.
don't know where anything is. I'm getting surrounded by people. People are trying to stop me. It's a lot if you've never been to one before. It's a lot of people, a lot of stuff. So my suggestion is definitely even if you bring it and keep it in the car for a little bit, get a feel for the con first. And if it's a
Yeah.
multi-day con, take a day, get a feel for the con, cosplay on day 2.
I agree. I think that's even like you're saying, just for the hour, just to get in, get your badge, figure out where the bathrooms are,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Have some water before, have some water after, go to the bathroom. Um, I think that's a fantastic idea, especially if it's a multi-day con. If it's in your local town, even better, you can walk there the
Yeah.
first day. You know what I mean? You can drive. You figure out parking and everything. I absolutely agree with you. Um, to kind of round off the conversation, I think it's one of those great things that conventions are. They are a place for everyone to come, everyone to express their appreciation for all the different facets of pop culture. Cosplay being a very large number of them. I went to Fan Expo last year.
Mhm.
Um, I was shocked at how many people were cosplaying. Like
Yeah.
easily 50%, if not more, of the people there were cosplaying. It was amazing. However, that was a lot. I was very lucky that I got to be there for the first day and I could kind of walk around and talk with people I know and get to know everyone, break some ice, which was fantastic. But I was very thankful I had that first day. I definitely recommend it. And obviously, conventions are optional. Like this
Mhm.
episode and this conversation is by no means trying to force you and go, "Well, everyone else is going to con, so you should go to con too."
No.
This is simply going, if you're interested, if you
Yeah.
want to, and you've never been, here's some things to expect. Here's some things that we suggest you do. Um, Cons are very big for a lot of people, and they will push cons. If you're not going to con, why do you make a costume? Ignore those people. The costume should be your primary focus. The sharing of the costume
No.
at a con is a secondary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially and it's really funny you brought that up because I actually had a really crazy moment on Thursday that kind of hit me like a fist. Um, I have been working on a cosplay right now that I know I should have been putting more time into because I kind of had a deadline that I self imposed. And I was realizing because I haven't been feeling great lately and some other things that have come up in my life, I haven't put as much time and effort into it. And I was starting to get worried. And then it kind of hit me of like, why am I putting this much pressure on myself? Why am I worrying so much about a self-imposed deadline of having it ready for a con? And I realized it was because back when I started going to conventions and back in the day, um, this didn't exist. Like in 2009, 2010, we were still running on Blackberries
Mhm.
and didn't have the social media we have now. You make a costume, you can send it out online now.
Yep.
You don't have to wait for a specific date. I used to build costumes and spend the whole year building to a con.
Yep.
And I still had that mindset. And I realized it doesn't matter if I get it done this or this May for Anime North or this September for Fan Expo or next September. It's taking the time and enjoying building it that is the
Yep.
important part because if you rush it and try and get it done for a con, you're not going to get a good enough job because you're going to be rushing. So
Yeah.
definitely don't put that pressure on yourself that you need to get something done for a con or you
Yeah.
have to go to a con or something. Just you have social media. We're all on it. It's part
Mhm.
of the world. Show your cosplays that way. We just went through a couple years where we couldn't go to cons, and I think we showcased that cosplay can grow even when there isn't cons. So it's definitely something that you don't have to feel pressure about.
No, I realized the other day I have a Batman costume with,
Mhm,
like, a muscle suit and everything. I have never worn it to a con.
mhm.
I've had it for years, and because the pandemic and everything, I just haven't worn it. I was like, "Oh, maybe I should wear that one day." Just, like, I've never worn it out, and I've done some photo shoots, but I've never gone to a con before, so yeah, so to wrap it up, thank you very much for taking the time, Michael. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your insight, and I'm sure you watching will also appreciate it. I'm going to have all the links to all your social medias down below. I highly recommend you follow Myers Corp Cosplay because he's just an inspiration. Fantastic guy, very approachable. If you see him at con, he, like you were saying, if you see either of us at a con, if you can recognize us through the helmets, I definitely recommend saying hi and everything. Michael, could you just tell us all where we can find you audibly? And again, I'll have the links down below. So
Sure. You can find me on pretty much all the major social medias. Instagram mainly, TikTok, definitely more cosplay stuff on Instagram, funny stuff on TikTok. Facebook's just a secondary home for the Monday Night Nerd podcast that I host every Monday night. We talk about nerdy things, not just cosplay. We talk about video games, movies, comics, just tons of nerdy stuff. Certain guy over here was on one of the episodes. He is going to be on another episode coming up. But yeah, check that out. That's on YouTube every Monday night, 7 o'clock. For now, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, you can find me anywhere. I'll be posting stuff every couple days.
awesome. Well, thanks again, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, sir. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more cosplay content.